Table Talk with Brenda Perryman is brought to you by Livingston Family Dentistry.
Livingston Family Dentistry knows that good dental care ensures overall wellness, and healthy teeth and gums can perfect your smile. With over 30 years of experience, Dr. Ronald and Dr. Blake Livingston take the time to explain every treatment. Their modern office and friendly staff are committed to making you feel comfortable, informed, and satisfied. Located at 13724 Woodward in Highland Park, call now 313 883 3050. If your teeth are not becoming to you,
then you should be coming to us.
Good morning. I'm here with my gentleman for Table Talk. Introduce yourself, guys.
I'm Ellis Liddell. Happy to be back here with Brenda Perriman
and Jerome Buffington.
I'm
also very, very happy to be back here.
You know, Daron, I thank you because Daryl was supposed to be here, but he's sick. I had another person supposed to be here. She's sick. I think something's going around. Ellis, let's kind of lean over here.
No, I'm healed. I've been touched.
Remember, there was somebody on when I was a little girl. He put Oral Roberts or somebody. He put his hand on the person's head and say, "Heal." You know, he put the head down. When I was a little girl, they used to scare me to death. You know, and I'd like to thank my former student Jasmine, who's here. She's getting ready to leave. She's been helping me out. And she won an $100 gift certificate yesterday at the Ajima Group Multicultural Media Luncheon.
And you know what? And Cheryl just keeps putting that group together, and it just gets better and better each year. The speakers are phenomenal. And more importantly, it recognizes car industry. And we always talk, we live in a car town. It recognizes those
different
experts.
ethnicities and multiculturalism in the industry.
And that's what's so good about it. It does. It recognizes people who don't ordinarily get recognized.
Correct. Engineers, behind the scenes people.
Right.
But they make a difference in your life.
Engineering, advertising, and everything.
In our lives.
What interests me, or what was kind of different, was the Steph Curry video. There were other videos, you know, because a team of experts vote on these videos. And for different things, advertising, for commercials, other things. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they had the Steph Curry one that I had seen a million times with him bouncing the ball. But then they had another one in that same little group that made everybody kind of choke up. And I think it was the one about the kids in the hospital. And that was Hyundai.
Okay.
I think it was Hyundai or one of the others. And I was it was just interesting that all Steph Curry did was bounce the basketball while someone drove a car, and then the swoosh through the hoop sounded like the engine of the car. I paid attention. And then, I mean, what did you think of those? Some of those commercials were really good.
No, those commercials are always good. Because I lead the event every year, YouTubing and looking up commercials that don't necessarily make urban TV.
Right.
A lot of those commercials are set for a certain market.
We don't see them in
our market because we're considered top 10 market in the U.S.
Apparently not that good. Amazon turned us. We didn't even make the top 20.
Well, there were a lot of things, a lot of factors that went into Amazon. From what I understand, they were looking for a city with a mass transit system. That was very important to them. We did have the port. I understand that they wanted a city with a port as well. They wanted to be located Midwest, East Coast. From what I understand, Philly is probably the top choice right now because it's close to D.C., close to New York.
And it does have a mass transit.
And it has a port. So they can get down to the southern states, Raleigh, in South Carolina, as well as Florida. And they can also be in New York in an hour.
Yeah, so, you know what? Let's talk a little bit about that. Amazon. No one saw Amazon as disruptive, but they are one of the most disruptive companies ever created. I remember when Walmart was considered disruptive, when they would come into a town, they put the grocery store out of business, the local hardware store, and they put a number of people out because they came in and discounted the prices.
Oh.
And I shouldn't say the
Remember
local
when
hardware store, but yeah.
the Walmart was going to be built over in Livonia on
And they
Middle
voted it.
Belt?
That's
There
it.
was a lot of protests.
A lot of
about that.
protests. And Amazon quietly came in and people, you ordered, I ordered, and people started ordering. And the next thing they went from selling books and tapes to
Groceries.
everything.
Groceries.
Convenience. It's
And now
convenient.
Amazon is one of the biggest companies in America.
Convenient.
growing.
In the world.
And then you look at safety as well. Safety is a big
Yeah.
thing. You don't have to go out, especially for Christmas time. You know you always hear on the news. You know, watch yourself. Tips to keep yourself from getting robbed. You know, during the Christmas while you're shopping and things of that sort. Amazon alleviates a lot of that.
And can you,
Amazon even delivers on Sunday.
And
Yeah,
you
they
can
have the
shop
post office delivery.
24 hours.
24
You can
hours.
literally be in your bed and
Oh,
like
I-
my wife is quite a bit shopping.
Amazon, I order something from Amazon every week,
and that's what's happening.
sometimes twice a week.
So let me just say this here: UPS, FedEx, and the post office. They're logistics companies. The United States Post Office is a logistic company, whether people realize it or not. Package deliveries is logistics. Okay, you got to get packages from here to there.
Okay.
Amazon is growing so fast that they have put a strain on the UPS, FedEx, and the U.S. Post Office to keep up with the deliveries.
And that was one of the things that I was hoping that they would come here actually, because I wanted to do logistics, small company delivering small packages
Right. Right.
within a 50 to 100-mile radius.
Okay.
Yeah.
And, you know, you can do very well.
And then they just tell you on your phone, they'll tell you your package will be delivered today. And then as soon as it's delivered, your package is outside. I mean, it is just
So
great.
it's great logistics. So it's a game changer.
Yes.
And it doesn't mean that they won't eventually, if they keep growing, it won't come to Detroit. It doesn't mean that. It just means that it
Well, they have
wasn't
distribution centers here.
correct. They got just everywhere because
Yeah,
they need them.
Well, I think we have 3, if I'm not mistaken. We
And
have
it was a
3
corporate
distribution
office,
centers
but at the rate that they're growing, they could hire another 1,500 people and open up in another city. It's just amazing growth. And you said it, worldwide.
here. Yes.
Worldwide.
And
Worldwide.
I don't think you can beat that convenience. Even when they had Amazon, they came out with Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
My sister's addicted.
I'm a Prime member. I'm a Prime member. I love it. They even remind me that I don't use certain services on my Amazon Prime.
She was calling me Black Friday, the Saturday before Black Friday. Jerome, this is on Amazon Prime. Might want to get this for Logan. This is on Amazon. I mean, I guess they send her alerts.
Yeah,
and
they
certain
do.
things go
They
on
do.
sale.
They actually do. They look at your spending habits.
And
That's another thing.
and you know,
Analytics.
when you look at the cost, you know, they don't have to pay salesmen. They don't have to hold a store. All they need is a warehouse. So they're making a lot of money.
And the state
And they're cutting out
and
a lot of the middlemen.
You know who the first person was, and you just heard him speak, who caused states to look at athletes and say, why aren't we not taxing these individuals who play in our stadiums? A-Rod.
Alex Rodriguez.
Yes.
And we saw him yesterday. We saw him.
He calls it. We call it now the A-Rod tax, where
Really?
every athlete is taxed in every city they play in. He signed
In
160.
every city they play in?
Every city playing. He signed a $165 million contract, and that's when somebody put the pencil how much they were losing. If he appeared in these different states this many times a year, how much money they were losing in revenue. Then they say, wait a minute, Alex is just one player. What if we were taxing every player? And that's when it started.
So they get
Oh,
taxed in their home state. They get taxed in every state that they play in.
That is crazy.
Canada
But-
too.
No, but do they have
Oh,
to
they
file
get
in that?
if they go over the earnings amount for Canada, they would. Toronto, yes.
Wow.
Now, do they have to file in that state or?
Yes, they have to do an individual tax return for
Oh
that
my-
state. Sure do.
That must.
So they can collect the money.
That tax person
Now,
must make quite a bit
That
of money.
takes us to Amazon,
Okay.
who also wasn't paying state tax,
Right.
wasn't paying
I
sales
like that.
tax,
I got mad
Ah.
about
and now they're collecting. And this is what the IRS did. They went back and started auditing people to see the states. I'm sorry, the state tax division started auditing. Did you order from Amazon? So some of the people who own Prime, who ordered a lot of stuff, they're being audited by the state to collect the sales tax.
Well,
Wow.
I mean, I got so angry when I heard that if Amazon is in your state in any way, you will be taxed. That's what happened too.
Yep.
They said a few years ago, if they're in your state, because I was getting over like a fat rat in a cheese factory. I wasn't paying any taxes. You know, I'm saying, golly. But
Power to the people.
Yeah, I
Spending
said,
all that big money.
yeah, I said the government can't control me, and they're still doing it. And yesterday, Alex Rodriguez, what did you take from his speech?
Well, I didn't make it yesterday. They
Oh,
recognized me, but I
I,
wasn't present.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I sent a representative yesterday.
Well, I saw Diana. I saw Diana, but Alex Rodriguez, I was looking at him. Okay, let
How
me
long? How
just
long did you look at it?
let me get that out the way. He was very, very handsome. He was tall, great thighs. Um, no, I noticed that. No, the
Can we
reason
wait? Can we say
don't
that?
we don't
Can
get
we
that,
say
we,
that?
we don't
Is
get to
that-
have that
is
conversation
that
about a
sexual-
woman.
Is that sexual
we'll
harassment?
talk
Can we say that in this
we'll
day?
talk about that later in the
Okay,
thing because some
okay.
people are being put in trick bags. But anyway, about this sexual harassment and everything, some lines are going to have to be drawn. But we'll talk about that. No, but he got to sit down. They did it more like an interview, and then but he was very good. He talked about. I always tell people that you will always, if you revert back to the things that you liked in your childhood or that were a passion in your childhood, you will be successful, or your attitude. And as a child, he used to watch people who had businesses, and he said, God, I want to be a businessman too.
Mhm.
There were just things, and he played baseball and all this stuff. I looked up at him, and he was an unaffected multimillionaire.
Right.
He just seemed so unaffected. And he said, and a lot of us quoted this, he said, I am number 5 on the list of most strikeouts of any player. He said number 1 is Reggie Jackson.
Hmm.
But remember, they're all stars too.
Right.
But he said I was number 5. I failed more. He said, but I got a master's in standing back up.
Hmm.
And that's the thing. A lot of people fail once and they just
give up.
They just say, I can't
Call it
do
a wrap. It's
Yeah.
over.
Wow.
I remember the first book of poetry I wrote. I said, I kind of self-published it and stuff, and I sent it to, then I read about these ladies. They say they publish unpublished poets, and so they were in Minnesota.
Okay.
And I sent my book, and they wrote me back, said, no, we're not interested at this time. And then there was a note that one had written another one says, we don't like this kind of poetry. But I had been in front of all these audiences doing this same poetry.
Right. Right.
And the audiences were not limited to Black audiences because my poetry basically is just for everybody. And I had spoken at Notre Dame, St. Mary's College in Notre Dame, Indiana, and Notre Dame, the university. I had all types of audiences who liked it. But that could have destroyed me. It kind of hurt me for a minute.
Right.
But I said, I'm going to keep it moving.
So you have a master's in
then
standing back up also.
Oh, God. Well, really, yeah, because even my accident when the doctor said I'd never walk again. Hello. But anyway, I mean, that was very important. And he said, of course, they talked about branding, which is something, it said to me, branding, that's what a lot of people, you young people, get involved with branding. I said, when I was coming up, we never thought about branding. We
Even when
just-
you were doing it.
Yeah, we were doing it, because, but we never thought about it. And my mother was at the hairdresser one day, and I did this Oprah commercial years ago, back in like 93 or so. And they played it all the time. It was an Oprah commercial. And the commercial came on, and somebody in the salon said, my teacher. Somebody said the poet. Somebody said the this. And I said, wow, you don't even know that you're branded.
Correct.
You just do the things you do.
Very much so. Very much so. And it's very important in today's age because it's a lot of money being made off your brand. So you have to be in charge of it. You have to be in control of it. You have to be aware of how you're being portrayed or how you want to be portrayed to others because you are your brand.
Wow. Never thought of it like that.
Right. And that's what's happening today is that people are they're more brand conscious. And because you're more brand conscious, you don't want to make the mistakes because one mistake could cost you millions of dollars. Think about the people who get off track. When you get off track, it's hard to get back on track.
Well, it's even harder if you're a woman, and that's the truth.
Well, neither
So a
one of us is
woman-
going to deny that because we've
a-
never been a woman.
Minority.
Yeah, yeah, minority,
were
a
limited to-
woman, and so forth. You look at a Donald Trump, and you see the things that he gets away with and has gotten away with that Barack Obama and maybe even George Bush wouldn't have gotten away with.
I don't think anybody would have gotten away with it. He's not getting away with it. I mean, if his presidency ended today, he will not go down as a great. He won't even be. There will not be a G behind his name. Not
but
a good
there
G
still
anyway.
will be president in front of
It
him.
will definitely be president
So
in front of him.
technically, he's getting away with it. Now, I'm. Oh man.
Well, he's
I'm
getting
impressed
away
this
with
week.
it, but it's still a stain on
Yeah, it
the
is.
presidency.
You know what I started thinking about? You know how the other presidents get together for a picture and everything like that. He's talked about him so bad. I said, would they want him in the picture?
I don't. From what I gather, they don't like him. I don't see where George Bush has said anything positive. I don't see where George Bush the father has said anything positive. None of them would help him campaign.
Right.
Barack Obama, we can definitely tell, does not like him or does not respect him because of the things that have taken place.
And if you want respect, you have to give respect. He
Bill
doesn't
Clinton
give respect.
can't respect this man after the way he's attacked his wife and continues to attack her.
And he considered them a friend.
Yeah, they used to hang.
Right. So just imagine if this is your friend.
And I don't think anybody is off limits when it comes to him because
No.
he does not take responsibility
Right.
for anything.
Anything.
Anything that happens, he always seems to be able to find somebody to say that, hey, they did this worse than me,
He
or they did
invests
this
in
too.
scapegoats.
or-
He scapegoats all the time. But you know, you think about it, he has no real loyalty to anyone except his family.
I'm not sure he's.
I don't
loyal
even
to
think
them.
it's to his family.
Yeah, I mean, look at his wife. They're walking down the aisle and she
Oh,
hits
yeah,
his
she
hand.
hits his-
I mean, come on now. You're tolerating it.
He gets
And
on
like
the
you said
airplane. She's walking behind him, doesn't help her up, doesn't help his child up.
There's nothing gentle
all
man
about
that
him.
process.
And I don't know how they did this, but with that health thing, the
I
other
knew
day,
you were gonna bring that up.
I Wikipedia'd him. They said he was 6'2". How did he grow?
That's what everybody said. He got older and grew,
Yes.
grew an inch.
Yeah, the weight.
I know. And they showed other people with the same weight, but body design has a lot to do with things. Don't you
It's
think?
no way in the world that man is that way. It's no way physically that he can be. I went to the doctor yesterday. I'm 235. It's no
You're
way.
kidding.
I didn't know I was 235. I'm 235. I have to lose
And
30
he's
pounds.
supposed to be what?
Was it? It was 230 something, if I'm
Yeah,
not mistaken. It's
237
no way
or
in the
something.
world. No way in the world.
And
And he's supposed to be taller than me?
yeah,
No.
that is crazy. You weigh 157.
now, a little more than that.
Well, South Africa, they summoned U.S. diplomats to explain Trump's comments. If you know, Trump made a comment about, he called them
S-holes.
S-hole countries. God, I almost said
That's
it.
right.
S-hole countries. These were countries of people of color, of course, and Africa. Hello. But, you know, and he didn't deny it, really. Well, he's denying it now, but we know that he did do it. Do you think people should just take it for what it is? Okay, he did that, and let me go on. I don't think an apology is something that people
How can
should
he apologize
yearn
for being him? He is who he is. This has been consistent. Every time he opens his mouth and he says something, oh, he didn't mean it that way.
Right.
He didn't mean, that was locker room talk. Or this is who this man is. You cannot continue over a duration of time to make statements such as these. I mean, he's basically attacked everybody that you can attack. England?
Oh, definitely.
He said something about England and the deal that they made.
don't want it.
Where they're upset with him.
But what about this apology thing? I just think I don't want him to apologize. It wouldn't be true.
Yeah, I mean, what is he apologizing to say that he was sorry for
I
saying
mean, it's
it?
like Ellis, you coming to me and you just choking me and everything, and then you stop and say, "Oh, I'm sorry, Brittany."
How did your neck get on my hand?
Why'd you do that?
Yeah, how did your neck get on my hand?
So, what do you think about the apology piece?
You know what? I think there's cases where that, in spite of being the most powerful man on the planet, as they call him, I think you have to humble yourself sometime and show people that you're willing to go in a different direction. You're willing to meet them part way. South Africa took the lead, not Ghana, some of the other black African countries. South Africa took the lead and said, no, we're not going to have you say that's about the diaspora.
Who is not a poor country. They are not a poor country at all.
Right.
And they've done these are countries that we do trade with.
Trade.
These are countries that produce different
And
items
then
for
there's
us.
Nigeria. They have some of the richest people.
On the planet. Yeah. So this is a case where that he has to be called to task. And the Black Caucus just came out and, said some things that they want done. But eventually enough people will call to task his competency. He can be competent but crazy.
Well, they talked about that cognitive exam he had.
Right.
All it was, can you recognize these animals?
Well, I'm figuring if they lied on the weight and the height, everything from that point on, we have to question. And when you look at the countries, and especially when he says Africa, Africa is very diverse. When you go to Southern Africa, you're talking about people who are African American. When you go to Northern Africa, you're talking about Arab nations and things of that sort. So it's not, when he said Africa, he was talking about a myriad of different nationalities and ethnicities.
But it shows you how much he doesn't know about Africa also.
Correct.
And I don't think he values it.
Because you've been to Africa, you've been there.
I've been to
Yes,
Africa,
yes.
Oh, okay.
And I've been to parties in England where that there were people from Madagascar and all over the African diaspora, as they say. And you could see everything in that room. Blue-eyed,
Yes.
dark.
Yes. Yes.
You can see a mixture of people. And that's the thing about it, is that I can't understand why someone would say what he said. Because
But that's
but
ignorant.
he's sitting in a meeting,
I-
he's frustrated. He probably doesn't want to be in a meeting because he's a little ADD.
Right.
And so he's probably just frustrated at this point of being in the meeting all this time. And he wants to get out the meeting, but you can't get out the meeting. This is your meeting.
Yeah.
So we can't explain President Trump. We never will be able to explain it.
But I think it feeds into everything else he's done. When you look at Charlottesville, when you look at his base, and their fears of
He plays
people of
to
color
fear.
Oh, yeah.
Then he
coming to
plays the
America
fear.
and taking
gets a
over
low
and them
grade.
being a minority.
He gets a low
So
grade
let's
on that.
stop the people who are coming over to this country that are going to help make us the minority in a few years.
Now, Ellis, you are, well, I consider you a very smart man, money wise. And I would like to ask you, honestly, the new tax plan that was passed.
Right.
Would that work in your favor?
It's going to work in my favor. It's going to work in it's going to work in all our favors.
All right, is it?
It is. And let me tell you why. There are a lot of people out there who really don't itemize their taxes because they don't have enough to itemize. So they don't get a chance to take advantage of what item is. You're going to get a higher deduction, so you're going to be able to itemize more things. So as a result of all of that, I'm one of those people that if I'm given lemons, I'm going to make some lemonade. I'm going to find the best pieces of this. Now, is it a perfect tax proposal? Absolutely not. But will the average person actually do better? Well, if I look at it from the standpoint that if there's 10 million African Americans who get $500 more than they had the previous year, when you start doing the math, that's a huge amount of money that's going to be put back into circulation because they need the money before they get the money.
Mm-hmm.
However, it's going to benefit everybody at the end of the day.
I just don't understand taxing the folks that have the money less than you're taxing the folks who don't have the money.
Well, let me give you the concept behind it. The concept is this. If I'm, like now, the corporate tax rate for me was 35%.
Okay.
Right.
But if I'm going to get away with 20%, I have 15%. Now, most people think like me. I can either write a check to the IRS or I can hire 6 more people. I'm going to hire 6 more people. Because I learned a long time ago that working 16-hour days doesn't cut it. My little girl is 14. I went to the hospital. I saw her that first day. I went back to the office and hired 2 assistants. I don't take work home after work. I haven't taken work home she's 14. I haven't taken work home 14 years. When I walk out of that office, the 2 assistants,
You're done for the day.
I'm done for the day. And seldom am I on the phone calling my assistants and say, hey, did you do so-and-so? Because now I'm micromanaging my assistants.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to learn, and that's what's going to happen in most corporations. That's the reason why a lot of companies said, oh, we're going to take this savings and we're going to give it to our people. So You get $1,000 bonus. You get $1,500 bonuses. So money's
But
going to be
some
put in
of the
circulation.
companies laid people off after they gave the bonuses.
Yeah.
Walmart,
Yeah, but
They
well,
closed.
Sam's Club.
where they,
It was
Sam's Club.
it's owned by Walmart.
Correct,
Sam,
correct.
Sam Wall.
So
Right.
they closed some, and then they
Keep
did
in
something on
mind.
the back end, so it balanced out. But it wasn't.
Keep this in mind. Do you realize you have young kids, right?
I had one. Yes, one daughter, 2 years old.
2 years old. Do you know the job your 2-year-old is going to do is not even created yet?
Hmm.
Okay. So remember the telephone company? They had all those operators,
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
one day they decided to lay off almost thousands of operators one day because the computers was already doing all the
Technology.
work. Technology.
When I graduated from high school, a lot of people I knew went to work at Michigan
Michigan
Bell,
Bell.
Mm-hmm.
and then all of that started evaporating.
So now, having said that, to say this here, Walmart's closing those stores because of the pressure Amazon is putting on that we talked about earlier.
Mhm.
Macy's, all of them.
Yeah.
Everybody's going through it because that's an old model. The new model is put the post office back on the planet, back on the map. Because when we started emailing, the post office revenues went
Went
way
way
down.
Down, yeah.
And now deliveries are pushing them back up. So it's that yin and yang. Yes, one industry is going to be going down while another industry is going up. And that's what's happening. And that's what's getting ready to happen. But we're going to see change. Just think about my mom the other day. I gave her an Apple. I gave her an iPhone because she had this phone that had minutes on it. And I said, okay, Mom, I'm going to get you an iPhone. And so she literally is holding a computer in her hand, but
That's
her
it.
mind couldn't handle you holding a computer in your hand.
Mhm.
I just told her you got a phone that lets you do all these different things. But literally,
And you had to teach her how to do
that-
those
yeah.
things.
and that, and,
That's
and-
going to be a
and-
trial
yeah.
in itself.
Well,
let me tell you.
She learned how to text already, so she's been blowing
She
me
has
up.
my father. My father literally texts me. calls me to text somebody. Text this person for me.
Yeah, I have
Really?
Friends, I have friends who do that to me.
Okay, so
I mean, they're
but that's
older than me.
technology.
Mhm.
And as a result of what's happening with technology, like I said, your 2-year-old's job hadn't even been created yet.
Yeah.
Her future's not even created. So we're trying to figure out where's the industry going to be tomorrow. And yes, Walmart's closing some stores, Sam's Club, because more people are ordering, getting ready to order off of Amazon and other places, including Walmart.com. They also, you can order from
Yeah.
them too.
But the problem I have is we're putting an awful lot of trust in companies and people on Wall Street and things of that sort who have shown us in the past that they
They
can
are
be
not
less
our
than
friend.
trustworthy.
They're not a
And when it comes to us or them, they're
Mhm.
going to choose them every time. When it came to
Yeah.
the mortgage rates and things of that sort.
It's the same people,
So-
the same lobbyists, the same industries are
Mhm.
running everything still. You just got to figure out how you're going to get a piece of that. Now, a guy told me one time, he said, if there's $1 million industry out there and you jump in, everybody going to notice that you're in there. But if it's $1 trillion industry and you're making $1 million, no one's ever going to pay you any attention. So we still have to figure out ways to integrate ourselves into the system.
Mhm.
And we still waiting for our people. That's the one thing about this movie that's coming out, the Black
Black
Panther.
Panther. Mhm.
is that they show you in the movie what it could look like.
Mm.
It's a glimpse of what it could look like if we decided to pull ourselves together. If the African countries who have all this wealth in terms of minerals
Right.
were to ever commoditize and get the true value of the minerals, because even this iPhone comes from Africa, the basis of it comes
Mhm.
from Africa.
Right.
So if they ever got paid what they were really worth, then it would be like what the Black Panther is trying to show us. But we have to figure out ways to get our piece of the pie. And not just us. I mean, everybody is doing the same thing. Everybody's trying to figure out, how do I compete?
Well, I look at my people. I mean, like people who watch our show. What can people do? I mean, say if you're, just regular old folk. What can I do? What can be the first step to buying in to try to get a piece of the pie?
Let me just say this here. The first step is to start doing business with people that look like you. I'm just, if you make a conscious decision to spend $1 out of your day, not the whole money you make in a day, just the $1 with somebody who looks like you. Because guess what? Guess who's gonna get a phone call when somebody wants their child to have an internship? I'm getting that phone call, right?
Mhm.
And I'm getting it from people who haven't invested $1 with me.
Mhm.
So if you're investing $1 with your business, for example, I mean, you got a better chance of hiring some young black youth
Mhm.
than anybody else is going to give them a chance, because people don't even let you come interview anymore. So they don't even look at you. They don't care what you look like anymore.
And with my job particularly, I'm a business development manager with VNA, Visiting Nurses Association. So I deal with a lot of doctors, especially doctors of color around the city of Detroit. I made a conscious decision, Christmas time, we take different gifts to the doctor's office. Good Cakes and Bakes up on Livernois, black-owned store.
Yeah.
I can't tell you how much money I spent on cupcakes up in there.
But you made a conscious
I
decision.
literally was going in every day, and when I walked out, there were no cupcakes in the in the freezer. They would
Right.
just call us and let us
Right.
know. But with that, I looked at it like this is marketing,
Right, and it gives a residual return.
and if they like it, they're gonna go
if
there
they
and
like
shop
it.
as well.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm helping promote this business. I'm helping my sister out, who opened this business and is trying to be successful. Not only that, but when they go back to that store to shop, there are other stores also on Avenue of Fashion where they can, eat next door or buy a suit across the street or Simply Casual right there on the corner, things of that sort. So now they're exposing themselves to the businesses that are in that area
Right.
that they might also patronize.
Well,
Yeah.
let's kind of go on a little bit. We have Simone Biles, who won 5 or 6 medals in the Olympics.
Bad girl.
Oh, very good. Very, very good. She, too, had said she had been kind of molested by Dr. Nasser. And it's so many, it's 100 and something women.
Right. Right.
I can't imagine that the Michigan State president, who I have interviewed,
Mm-hmm.
did not know anything. She says she did not know, or they didn't follow back with her. But do you think the buck stops here?
Especially being a female and knowing that these young girls are being abused
Well, they
in this
said
way.
she said she might have heard something about it, but they didn't follow up.
Mm-hmm. Well, here's the challenge. Unfortunately, when it happens on your watch,
You
The
are
buck
responsible.
stops with
Mhm.
you.
yeah,
doesn't
you don't get to say, "Well, I didn't know." And back to Bale's comment about how did it happen? How did this number get to be so large? I mean, the guy had to be abusing a lot of people for a long time.
Well, he was a doctor, and listening to the I was listening to some of the testimony yesterday, and one girl was saying how she went in and he took his gloves off
Mm-hmm.
to give her an exam, and he
Right.
He-
put his hand in her for
her.
like 20 minutes,
Right.
moving it around, and then said thank you afterwards.
Is that awful? And Simone Biles said this for too long, I've asked myself, was I too naive? Was it my fault? I now know the answer to those questions. No.
No.
It was not my fault. No, I will not and should not carry the guilt that belongs to Larry Nasser.
And you have to think about, these are young girls. These are girls,
Right.
11, 12-year-old. This is probably their first time with a gynecologist where
We
They don't know
all
what
have
goes on.
we all have daughters.
Mhm.
Imagine if that was your daughter.
Right.
I would hurt that man very, very,
Yeah.
very badly.
And that's the time they're gonna give him is not enough. But
Mm-mm.
but all the people who look the other way, because somebody had
The
to say
Olympic
Just
committee.
like at Penn State.
Olympic Committee, not just Michigan State, but this man was dealing with little girls from all around
all
the country.
over the country.
All around the
Because
country.
didn't he work at those people's the
worked in
Olympics
Texas.
people? Yeah, in Texas, they've closed them down.
And you're going to see a lot of lawsuits. I know the one girl that was on the Olympic team. They paid her. She's the one that made the most noise.
Maroney.
Maroney.
But and John Legend's wife said she could go on and talk, and she said, "I'll pay any fines for her."
And they said if she did talk, that they wouldn't because they had a non-disclosure.
Right.
And the Olympic Committee said that if she did talk, I mean, they can't legally. I mean, it looks bad enough already. So now you're going to stop this young lady from telling how she was victimized, and you have 100 other women that are able to talk and stay.
But what do you tell your daughters? Imagine this hasn't happened, and you know that your daughters are into gymnastics or whatever. And how do you prepare them to know what's the wrong thing?
Okay, go for it.
One, I say the difficulty becomes when, a lot of these young girls are taken away from their families. So when they go off to these gymnastic camps, my niece, very good
Gabby,
to get the best
Right.
training, They have to go and do this on a daily basis. And usually it's not in a town that they're in, it's
Right.
somewhere else.
Right.
So unless you have the means to move with your
That
child,
is-
you're sending your child over to live with a family, boarding school,
Right.
That you don't
things of
really
that sort.
know.
So you're out of control. Only thing you can do is, try to prepare your child as much as possible to be on their own. But still, you're not there. And I know that has to be a hard feeling for a parent, especially listening to all these young ladies thinking
Oh,
that they're trying to do something
Nightmare.
to
Yeah.
better their child's life, not knowing that they're throwing them into the lion's den.
I think you do the same thing you tell your child, whether they're athlete or not. I've already had the conversation with my daughter about life,
Mhm.
and it's a conversation that continues because until she's married and on her own, it's going to continue. You're going to talk about how predators are.
Mhm.
And that conversation used to only be about guys, but now the conversation is about predators, period, not
Right.
male or female. So I think you have to continue to do that. But you also have to keep the open lines of communications open so that if your daughter tells you something that feels intuitively wrong,
Mhm.
they know to say something. Because I bet you out of the 100, there are probably 80 parents who the kid never said a word
Never
yeah.
said anything.
because they didn't know that it was wrong.
and probably thought it was their fault. But
Correct.
besides women, girls, I talk to my grandsons
Very much so, yes.
because you never
No.
know.
My father was adamant for myself as a child, and I never knew why. I just thought he was being mean. You don't go spend the night over anybody that's not your family's house.
That's it.
And it was only a few family members' houses I could go over.
Mhm.
Other than that, I couldn't go. My sister couldn't go. And now looking back on it, I understand, and I know it's gonna come a time when my daughter wants to do a sleepover. I mean, he would let the kids come over to our house,
Right.
but it was never
Go
me
the other
going
way.
anywhere.
And same here. My daughter, 14, has not spent the night out with friends yet, and she won't do it on our watch.
Yeah.
Well, my granddaughter, I just have one granddaughter. That's Penny Perryman. Anyway, but she goes to a sleepover and she's ready to come home at 9 o'clock.
Mhm.
And this would be right across the street. My grandson, I talk to him a lot because he's a big kid. He's kind of tall, and people think he's older than what he is. And you never know who the predator's going to be, a man or
Or
a
A woman.
You don't
Yeah.
know.
You hear a lot of horror stories, especially about young boys.
Yes.
Just the other day, that family in California, 13
Oh.
kids
Oh,
locked up in the house, and
malnourished. They said the 20-something-year-old weighed 88 pounds.
yeah, they thought none of them were over 18.
And the damage,
Yeah,
the
mental
brain damage that was done from being malnourished all those years.
It's crazy. You
Well-
don't know, and I say this, I think as parents, we always have to make sure that we put ourselves in our child's life to make whatever's important to them important to us, because I've seen where predators, when they see that they have somebody looking out for them, or that they're
Right.
less
Yeah,
likely
they're
to
less likely.
try. I mean, and that's even with grown people.
Shoot, my grandson, and he's only 11. He's only 11, but he tell my daughter, "You could just drop me off." There ain't no such thing as dropping you off. Who do you think you are? But I talk to him. I say, "Has somebody done such and such?" I
Mhm.
mean, does anyone try? I have to.
You have to ask those questions. Otherwise, you'll never know the answer.
Yeah.
Right. Because this kid was bullied and he didn't tell anybody. It took another parent to tell
Sure.
my daughter and my son-in-law.
And that tells you that they'll hold on to that. They'll hold on to other things. So keeping the lines of communications open is
Well, sometimes they talk
imperative.
about what they want. I mean, I learned because a lot of things I didn't tell my mother, because the punishment was just so hard, or I was scared. And sometimes you take things to heart. Maybe it was my fault. That my fault thing, is a big deal.
I have a young lady I used to date in college, and she and I are still really good friends. And she came out to me recently and was talking about how she had been molested by a young man. And I was like, why didn't you say anything? And she was saying, I was afraid to tell. She stayed with her grandmother at the time. So she was afraid to tell her because I thought my grandmother would kill him and I would lose my grandmother too. So even the pressure that is put on these children, not just to say, this person did this to me, but what's going to happen how is my family gonna react?
Absolutely. That's a big deal because you know things have happened. I'm trying to get this doctor on. I mean, it's a doctor. He has a program that he goes and visits people who are victims in hospitals to try to get them not to do revenge or whatever after they get out, which causes more and more violence. But I remember something that happened when I was a child, and I forgot what it was. I forgot what it was, but I know that I did not tell. I did not tell because I was afraid. Listen, that gentleman, it's made national news. The guy from, oh, let me ask
Oh,
a
yes,
question.
yes.
Do you think that the Michigan State president should resign?
Yes.
I do too.
Well, I think she's going to have to.
Yeah, I mean, this is going national. It's affected people, like I say, from all over the country, and these are, sad to say it, the victims are young white girls, and
Mostly.
yeah, mostly.
Yeah.
And
You
we know the society looks
they
at that
will not.
a lot differently.
And the
Uh-huh.
Board of Regents is eventually going to have a serious conversation about how much was really known and how much was covered up. So,
Absolutely.
so I do think the investigative process should go through. If indeed she didn't know anything, or the people who were supposed to report to her, it's like the Governor Snyder thing with the water thing in Flint. I mean, if he really didn't know, then he didn't know. But if
No.
somebody kept it from him, they hid it, then that person needs to be fired.
Right, absolutely. Well, they deported this gentleman who had been here since he was 11,
Mhm.
I think,
10 years old.
10 years old. But he didn't pass the muster to be a DACA kid.
Right.
Right,
He was
it's
too old.
He was too
Aged out the
old.
program.
But he's been here 30 years,
Working,
working,
Paying taxes.
didn't commit a crime,
not even a ticket.
and they just deported him back to Mexico, that he doesn't really know Mexico. The only reason I get kind of bothered, and I use this to talk about this, is because I just think of movies that I saw years ago when one rule goes down, then another rule goes down. And how do you know you can't be swept up into something? It may not be this, but you swept up into something when you look at the tenor of what's happening in the country right now.
I have a big problem with this because it's affecting people of color so much. But when you take a case like this, where you have a man who has contributed to society, he's done everything that you would want a citizen of the United States to do. He has fostered his family here, married, children. They are citizens. He's actually tried to go through the court system to get himself legalized.
He did, yeah.
$125,000 spent
Yeah.
trying to get through the process.
From a landscaper. He's a landscaper.
I
And
don't
he's done.
understand. I don't understand. I don't understand the rules well enough to become a citizen. I mean,
No.
I just don't
The immigration laws are very stringent, and there are people who practice immigration law. It's very hard to become a citizen of the United States, although people get to be it every year. Some of those people have been waiting for years to try and get on that list. I have a friend that came over from the same idea. Her mother moved here from Canada. Her mother eventually got married and became a legal citizen. Didn't have the money to do the kids. So she finds out 3 years after turning 18, when she goes to vote, that she can't vote in an American election because they finally pulled the records and realized that she's a Canadian citizen, not a U.S. citizen. So here's a girl that got here 2 years old,
Oh my gosh.
had a social security number,
Didn't even know.
assigned everything, didn't have a clue that she wasn't a legal citizen.
Had the social security number. What's a permanent resident? Do either of you know?
I do not
You
know.
can get a card as a permanent resident. I don't understand what
Yeah,
that
work
is.
visas. The reason I have a problem with this is because if you look at what Donald Trump said when he was running, people he wanted to get rid of and things of this sort, he didn't start in the prisons.
No.
He didn't start in the prisons.
No.
Millions of undocumented illegal aliens that are in this country,
Hispanic.
that have not
and
just Hispanic,
Africans,
Africans, and whites too.
Indian. Yeah.
That have
Oh yeah.
that have committed crimes, things of that sort. I would think that if you were going to get rid of somebody, These are the folks that you would get rid of and send back first. But no, because in the prison system, they're making money off of them. So we're going to leave them alone. We're going to go get the folks who are actually out here working, doing what they're supposed to do, not bothering anybody and leading regular lives, productive lives. And we're going to go and get them. There was another one that they had on the news the other day about a young lady who has, she's in a wheelchair. Parkinson's disease. I believe she has Parkinson's disease.
I saw something. I'm just trying to.
She's a Central Methodist Church.
Oh yeah. They're holding her. They're shielding her.
Safe house.
Safe house, right.
Her husband, they're trying to send back. He has a wife that's diagnosed with a debilitating disease. He has small children. He's working, hasn't done anything wrong, but they want to deport him. You know, you're tearing families apart, destroying the fabric of these families, which in turn could mess up their children's lives, mess up their other relatives' lives.
It definitely is going to have an effect on everybody.
Economically,
it's going to have an effect.
But you know, I always think about how these kind of rules can work its way towards, I mean, it may not be that rule.
Do we have citizenship? I mean, we were brought over here. We were brought over here.
You have to have 8 generations. What about the NFL? The NFL is talking about having reporters covering the Super Bowl identify their race.
Well, it's part of the FBI process. So, I'm gonna give them a pass on this one.
Safety measures.
For, but it's the they used to do it themselves, but now they're vetting. FBI is vetting them. So whatever the FBI rule is in place, I can go with that. So this is the one time I'm gonna go with fake news. No.
No, but that whole thing about race, and then they said a few years ago, they said, well, you really don't have to put your race down on applications.
Well, let me say this here. We're at a point in America. I mean, how long do we have to be here before you become an American? I mean, what's an American? If we hadn't been here, I can't tell you my great granddaddy who was a slave's name. I don't know it.
Yeah. Well, I know mine was Moses. Not Ben. That was his name. We have a call. Good morning. Hello?
Hey, how you doing, Mr. Evans?
Just fine, thanks.
So we're only 3/5 of a citizen anyway, right?
Oh, I forgot about that. I consider myself 100% a whole citizen.
So it could very well come to our doorsteps.
Yeah. I mean, you never know.
And but you know what they're doing now? Imagine that's what they did to us during slavery, breaking up the families, taking the father away. Same thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They did do that. You're right.
Different times, same
it's happening to other people.
Right. Good point. I mean, we just have to be so alert about things. There's so much going on right now. And
it really makes no sense, especially looking at Trump's history, where his grandparents were
migrants.
Right.
You know, and when he makes that S-hole comment, when you look back in time, Italians, Irish, when they came over during the Great Depression, they were looked at the same way.
Without paper, WAPs, without papers.
Right.
Yeah. So
Bics, they call them all kinds of names.
But because of color now, they're identifying not by nationality, but by color and race.
Oh, thanks for the call. I started thinking about when I was working on my master's in the early 70s, and it's like I graduated, I started teaching, but I went right on to work on my master's. And one of my teachers was talking, and he was saying in 25 years or whatever, he said, this is going to be a majority. You're going to see it's going to be a majority minority country. Mm-hmm. And he said, you're going to see a lot of people act out. This was a long time ago. Mm-hmm. He said, they're going to try to be the savior. And I think that this is what's happening.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the last foothold, if that's the case, because this is it. This is a wrap. Mm-hmm. The next president should be a person of color, and it should continue to be that way. Back to the whole point about how long do we have to be in America. When I travel overseas, nobody sees a Black American. They just hear my voice, open my mouth, and say, "Oh, you from America?" Mm-hmm. So that's all they see. So it's within this country that is pulling us apart. And somebody has to say, wait a minute. He's only lived here 60 years. He's an American. Go on.
No, no. What you saying is just absolutely right. How
But if we
wrong?
go back to what we were talking about in regards to brand,
Mm-hmm.
you're not the picture of the brand of America. Picture of the brand of America is white,
Mm-hmm.
male. Usually especially when you're talking about presidents, you're talking about leaders. When you look at Congress, when you look at the Senate
When you look at the cabinet room
and the majority,
in
yeah.
the White House, you see one black man,
Mm.
you see a couple of women, and all the rest white.
I'm flying to a conference tomorrow in New Orleans, and we just described the scene. I'm going to walk in there to a sea of whiteness, and the challenge is, do I go back next year, or do I just not? Or do I go in and say, I'm going to get on this committee, I'm going to get on that committee, and I'm going to make my presence known? However, here's the challenge with it, and it's still the way, because this is a new conference called the Forum 400. It's the 400 of the top investment professionals in the country. So I go in there, and by the time another African American makes it to the top, I'll be leaving.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the way it just keeps rotating, and it's
Mhm.
hard. And again, I go back to my original statement. People that look like me have to start spending dollars with people that look like me. Do people who look like me don't get there. And the reason why I'm able to go to that conference is because people who look like me here in Detroit. Oftentimes I talk about why did I move to Detroit over every city, because
Yeah, I
this
think
is
about
this is
that.
still the best city for an African American in the country.
God,
Better
I
than
think-
Jackson, Mississippi. Better than Charlotte. Better than all the other
Better than
cities
Atlanta.
that
I
hold the
used to
label.
ask
And
Cheryl
Atlanta
that
especially.
Years ago, I asked Cheryl. I said, "Why here?"
Why here? Why you
Yeah.
leave Memphis to come here?
Yeah.
Because if you can't make it in Detroit, you got a better chance. Let me say it better. You got a better chance of making it in Detroit than anywhere else,
especially as African American.
and less to overcome.
Wow. I guess you're right when you look at, but I want to say this about that meeting, about all this. I'm sure you're going to go in and end up taking it over, and you'll dictate the terms. No, I've seen that happen. I know it's happened to probably both of you, where you've gone into a majority white situation, and you end up being the word to the wise that they listen to.
Right.
Well, he's gonna be he's gonna be our representative.
Yeah.
He's gonna be
Right.
our representative.
And you can choose to be the
Probably-
representative, or you can choose to just be silent.
Right.
And I choose not to just be silent.
Right. But sometimes I like to come in, I say, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to listen, I'm not going to talk. But you hear so much erroneous information, you got to talk.
Yes.
You know,
Remember
oh,
when we said we weren't gonna talk about Trump anymore?
Oh,
Where we are,
we
a
got
year
to
later.
go, everybody. I'm sorry. We just stay on. We didn't get to everything. 'cause
Trump
I
is making
really
us all
wanna-
liars.
I want to talk about bad dates. You know,
Oh, yes, yes,
I
yes.
really want to talk about that. Okay, we'll see you next week. Talk to you then.